Hey guys, welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Andrew Siggers, and this time we're joined by Derek Binner and Colin McIsaac from Gamnesia to discuss the latest NX rumors, specifically that it's a handheld and not a console, although it has a little bit of both. So let's get started. Alright guys, so Eurogamer posted a rumor this morning that states basically what the NX finally is. So according to their sources, the Nintendo NX is actually a high-powered handheld console, but one that can connect to your TV via a dock. And as part of that, it evidently has two detachable controllers on either side of the screen, which presumably you can use as controllers when you actually use it on the TV. And on top of this, also divulged a few other details too, like the fact that it'll be powered by Nvidia's Tegra chip, and that there are no plans for backwards compatibility. So it really is, despite Iwata's words, a bit of a hybrid here. So what do you guys think about all this? For one, do you buy it? And two, are you happy with it?
I'm not the least bit surprised about any of it, really. It's, the hybrid idea is kind of what we've been expecting and speculating for a while. This is what we've been hearing about primarily. And the description of the controller matches up really, really well with the patent that came out about a month ago, that they filed a long time ago. So, and so actually does the idea of a base unit that streams the game to your TV. They had another patent that I believe was for a device that would plug into your TV and amplify the hardware wirelessly from, I think, a handheld device. So, I mean, that technology sounds wild, but it all lines up so well with what we've been seeing from the patents, what we've been hearing from, rumors and sources inside the industry. So it all makes sense to me. I think it's totally real. And it's Eurogamer, they're very credible.
Yeah, this isn't just some random site saying all this stuff. It is Eurogamer. Right. And one would assume that they've backed this up quite a bit before publishing this story. The thing is, it matches up so well with all the rumors we've heard before. Which,
both like officially and unofficially, like we've heard things our own, that match up with what they've announced.
Yeah, exactly. And, a lot of people keep pointing to the fact that Iwata said that it would not be a hybrid. And as you've pointed out before, it's like, Iwata's lied in the past. Don't believe his lies. His word is not gospel. They want you to think it's not going to be a hybrid so they can, surprise, it's a hybrid type thing. So,
and they also don't want other companies to see that and then start working on their own hybrid idea.
Exactly. It just makes sense to them to not it's a hybrid, to announce it beforehand. Of course they're going to keep that sort of thing secret. Of course, it's not a guarantee. I'm always I'm the guy that doesn't buy into this stuff at all. I'm the guy that's sick of the NX rumors and stuff like that. But I don't know. This seems much more credible than things in the past. It lines up with what I'd expect out of Nintendo and how they would all work out. And I'd say 75 to 80% on board with this. There's still room for changes or things not being quite exact, but I think most of this is probably right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel basically the same way. I actually think this makes a ton of sense for Nintendo, and also on a personal level, I feel vindicated because I've been championing the hybrid idea for a while, and a lot of people...
this would make you right? This is completely wrong. This is false.
Darn it! I think it makes a ton of sense. I mean, the 3DS is getting long in the tooth. It is quite old at this point, and it makes sense for Nintendo to capitalize on its momentum with a new handheld, I think, before worrying about the console space. And that actually gets me to my next point is, I think Iwata may not have been totally lying. But I think even though this has hybridish elements, I don't know if this is actually going to replace their consoles. So I think even though they can connect it to a TV, I think we very well could and probably will still see a true console from Nintendo down the line. So I think when Iwata said it won't be a hybrid, I think he meant it in the sense that it won't replace both their devices, because I don't think it will. I think it just has the functions of both, but it may not. I think there's still plenty of room to make another console down the line.
Maybe not permanently, but at least for the next, maybe not permanently, but at least for the foreseeable future, I imagine this is their plan for this generation. Maybe if it doesn't do well, or if there are other things that come along, they could say, let's split it back up again, or let's ditch handhelds, or let's ditch home consoles. But at least for now, I don't imagine them saying, hey, we've also got a new home console coming in 2018,
I wouldn't be surprised, because we got something similar with the GameCube, with the GBA and GameCube coming out within a year of each other, or 9 months even, I think.
Well, yeah, but the Nintendo 60... I mean, neither of those was anything like this concept. This is a handheld device that goes to your TV. I mean, it
Are you forgetting the Game Boy Player?
Okay, come on. Yeah, right.
So yeah, I mean, it could go in any number of directions. I guess it depends on
Sure.
its success, but I don't think this necessarily gets rid of the console line. But you're leaning toward the idea that it does. You think this is Nintendo's direction moving forward?
At least for for like, you know, anything they've got lined up. I think maybe, you know, they're eyeballing, you know, let's say for example 2020 they decide they want to put out a new home console. That could be right, but I think this is what they're really working on in the R&D teams. I mean, we know that they've consolidated their hardware R&D team with their their handheld and home console R&D teams, both for the hardware and software sides. So, I mean, I really think that this is their big hardware project right now.
See, I think you're both right, because it all depends on how successful this thing is. If the NX bombs and just doesn't do as well, they're gonna keep it split up and like, oh, here's our actual console that's coming out, and this is what it can do. If it's a massive success like the DS was back in the day, and because remember they said, I've mentioned this many times before, but back in the day they said, no, the DS is not going to replace the Game Boy line. The Game Boy line will go on concurrently with the DS, and then the DS was a massive success.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Game Boy was no more. And I think that's going to be the case here. If it's a success, it's probably going to be looking at a hybrid future. And more recently, their portable division, their handheld division, has been more successful than their console division, and so it makes sense to put the focus on the handhelds and then porting them over to making them a little bit more powerful, perhaps on TVs as well. It makes sense to go in this direction. But if it's not successful, well, we got a console coming down the line that we can see. You know, this is what we're actually doing now. They can course correct and change how they need to go.
See, I don't think its success would necessarily make them less inclined to make another console. I feel like we are already successful once, why not try it again?
The way I view it is if they're able to scale the handheld games up to the TV and a home console experience well enough, because these processors are primarily for mobile devices. It sounds like what they're really pushing here is the controller with the screen the screen with the controller attachments. Right. It sounds like this is primarily a handheld device. So if they can scale those games up to a home console TV experience well enough, in a way that people really, really get attached to, I mean, if this is successful, I think it will change the landscape of gaming. If this is really, really successful, that's what's going to happen, and that's what's going to prompt Nintendo then to consider maybe dropping the home console line entirely, is because gaming is a significantly different enough field that they don't need home consoles anymore, or dedicated home consoles rather. You know, if this thing fills its own little niche for a while, and Sony and Microsoft are still going with their plans full steam ahead for future, you know, Xbox and PlayStation iterations, maybe cloud gaming, we're hearing some of them talking about. If this doesn't sway to either of those companies at all, then yeah, I think Nintendo's definitely going to put out another home console somewhere down the line. But you know, it all depends how well they're able to make this system appeal to the gamers that they need it to appeal to.
I mean, you did bring up a good point there, that this essentially could be a game changer in that, you know, it basically is a hybrid in that it can function as both a handheld and a console, which isn't something we've seen before from any of the major players. Although I do want to point out, there's actually a very similar device already out there using the same processor, or same type of processor, being the Tegra chip, which is the NVIDIA Shield. It's a portable, you can plug in your TV, play as a console as well. It probably doesn't work quite as elegantly as Nintendo's solution, I'm sure, but there is something out there that's already very similar. Which also raises the question of, something we've touched on a little bit here, is how powerful is this thing going to be? Because up until now, a lot of people were assuming it's a console, and of course there were some rumors out there suggesting it would be a very powerful console. And merely the fact that we know it's a handheld, of course, means it's going to be dramatically less powerful than a console would be. Eurogamer supported this as well with their breakdown of the Tegra chip, or what they know of it, which granted it's still very vague. There's not a ton of details out there right now. And I saw, what is funny today is, apparently they themselves, Eurogamer with their Digital Foundry series, posted a video today about the Shield, which I just mentioned, with an analysis of Resident Evil 5's performance on it, and apparently it's not great. But there's not much we can take away from that. It's using an older version of the chip, presumably, and, you know, who knows how well Nintendo's, you know, we don't know all the details here. But the point is this, though, it's still, it sounds like it's going to be less powerful, or potentially less powerful than the existing next-gen systems, and it's definitely going to be less powerful than the PS4K and the Xbox Scorpio. So, do you think that's an issue for Nintendo?
No,
potentially. Okay, go ahead. You can...
Okay, yeah. The thing is, because it is a handheld that can connect to the TV, I don't think this is an issue, because here's the thing. They've already said that Breath of the Wild is coming to the NX, so it's at least as powerful as the Wii U, which is a pretty massive step up from the 3DS to be able to run Wii U games. And I think, just being able to have something like Breath of the Wild run on the NX and have it be a portable game at that point is something pretty massive and technically sound, because we can all be honest, the art direction in Breath of the Wild is very good. It looks like a fantastic game. The only issues we really had with it is that it does stutter quite a bit, and the hope is that the NX would be able to sort of make this frame rate a little bit smoother. So the assumption I'm going off of, and I don't know tech stuff at all, I don't know how these power chips work or anything like that, but my hope would be that they'd want it to be slightly more powerful than the Wii U, so it's able to run Breath of the Wild with no hiccups. It might not. We might just be looking at, hey, let's make the Wii U portable. But I'm not. I have a feeling that's not going to be the case. It's not going to be as powerful as the PS4, but I think it's going to be powerful enough that you can get things done. But that, again, that's just all assumption on my part.
Yeah, that sounds fair, and I think especially for a handheld device, people aren't going to be quite as attentive. Like, for example, you can output at 720p, and, on the smaller screen, it's not really going to make that much of a difference. I think what's really going to be important here is, first of all, how well Project Scorpio and PlayStation 4 Neo do. I see those as kind of like a new Nintendo 3DS situation, where they could either sort of, like we saw Xenoblade Chronicles X was a new 3DS exclusive, and then nothing else made by Nintendo was, because this system just didn't really make that much of a difference. If we get a new 3DS situation where everything out in the future is still working on PS4 and Xbox One and all that, and it just has sometimes better resolutions, better, frame rates on the upgraded consoles, then I think that the power won't be so much of an issue with the NX, because games are still mostly going to be made geared towards the original models of Xbox One and PlayStation 4. That's where a lot of the third-party development's going to be. But if those systems really take off and we get the big VR boom and all that going on, and people really migrate towards Neo and Scorpio, then it's going to leave NX in the dust for sure. That's going to be a big problem. But I think the other thing is how well they're able to position this as a handheld console and a home console at the same time. They really need to nail that marketing messaging down. Because if this is something where you can play Breath of the Wild, you can play like a full home console experience that blew up E3 on your TV and on the go, that's going to be huge. But they need to support it with other games that people are really interested not only in playing on their TV, but on the go at the same time. So Smash Bros, they're going to need Minecraft, they're going to need lots of games that can convince people, hey, there's a reason that you're going to want this system as opposed to the others, and it's because you can take your games everywhere with you. They're great on a home console, and that's why it's a great alternative to PlayStation and Xbox, but they're great on the go as well, and that's why it's great as its own device that you really need. There's nothing else like it on the market. If they can hit that message down, I think that's when NX is going to be successful, and that's when I don't think that the power of like Scorpio and Neo and PlayStation and Xbox is really going to matter too much.
Yeah, it's really, they're going to have to nail that messaging. And I'm sure after the Wii U, they've hopefully learned their lesson. Although it is funny that when you look at this, it's basically, it looks very similar to how they showed off the Wii U. It's a controller that works in conjunction with your TV, and it even has a dock that when you put the Wii U gamepad in the dock, it looks straight up like the NX layout here. And I should mention too that the author of the Eurogamer article actually tweeted out a picture of what he's heard the system will actually look like, and it looks like it's basically a Game Boy Advance, or a gamepad better.
It's kind of more like the bottom half of the 3DS, I see.
Yeah, that's true. Where the two edges would be detachable, and then they would become controllers.
But this is just their mock-up. It'll look completely different.
Oh, probably. Exactly. Yeah.
Because I would have to imagine, form function is going to be a major ideal for Nintendo with this system. They're going to want to make this thing as comfortable as possible, and I have to imagine that's going to be a big thing for them.
Well, yeah. I don't know. It hasn't really been before for handheld, so.
For handhelds, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that they might, and this is just speculation, but I have a hunch that they might be looking at ways to introduce multiple form factors of the same NX device, like a family of consoles. They often try to say, this is Nintendo, we're a family of consoles. And if they do that, we could potentially see a situation where you can only buy a home console NX, you can buy a handheld only NX, or you could buy one that is, sort of both at the same time. I imagine if they do that, then any iteration of NX can still connect to any other and get the same full compatibility. But, if they're able to make different iterations that have, someone who just wants to play for the handheld games can get it a lot cheaper if they just buy the handheld device. I forget where I was going with that. But as far as form factor, I'm not quite so concerned there.
I'm not sure they would do that sort of thing because, at least according to this rumor, their big selling point is going to be the fact that you can play it as both a handheld and a console. Yeah. So to split it up like that sort of defeats the purpose. Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I kind of worry, though, that having so many attachments and detachments and all this stuff is going to confuse consumers too much, like it did with the Wii U. Yeah. And that's part of why I'm wondering if they're going to release multiple form factors so they can basically boil it down and say, here's the simple version if you just want, if you don't really know how to play video games to your optimal ideal, it's okay. You just buy this console, plug it into your TV, and you're good to go. And I don't really know if they're going to be able to strike the right balance there. And so, yeah.
Multiple form factors could come down the line. I mean, Nintendo loves to re-release their portable hardware in various forms. I'm pretty sure at launch is going to be a single unit, though. I don't think they want any confusion here with what it is and what it can do.
Yeah.
And the less form factors have to worry about, the better.
Yeah, agreed there.
But yeah, I agree, Derek. If it's going to be a home console, hopefully they'll make it a little bit more comfortable than most of their handheld systems. But, and actually that brings up a question here, is in this mock-up at least, where you can see the two controllers, the two halves of the controller detached, I guess, they basically look like two Wii remotes. So I'm wondering how this will work exactly. Like, will the system, with a screen, I guess, charge the controllers? And then you can use both wirelessly as two separate Wii remotes, basically? And would they themselves have, motion controls built in?
That'd be wild.
That's crazy.
Breath of the Wild.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that.
And then the base station, of course, it could charge all of them at once. So
yeah, that would make sense. You'd have to charge the base handheld unit separately, though, because the controller detachments would have to.
Yeah, I guess it would be more if you're using both at the same time. Then you want to take your system out on the go immediately. It would then use the internal battery charge, or to provide power to the controllers. So.
Right. And, maybe they've got something like that gamepad dock, like you were mentioning, Andre, where you just plug the whole base system in, or not the base system, the handheld system in with the controller attachments on it, and it charges them all at the same time.
I mean, that's what I imagine the dock that you use to connect to the TV would do. I'm sure it's a charger as well.
Right.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So when you want to play your game, you just drop it in like you can with a gamepad now. The difference now is it's actively outputting that image to the TV.
Yeah. Maybe.
That would make sense. I will say, like one of the other, looking at this design, at least this mock-up, it's like, man, this will be very easy to port, to do Wii U games on here. I know it's we've already heard that it's according to this rumor that it uses cartridges, which is something that came out before, so wouldn't be exactly backwards compatible with the Wii U. But man, if they find some way, I guess if they release the Wii U games digitally, be super easy to put it on the console, just have it display on the screen and TV at the same time.
I think it depends whether this screen is a touch screen. I don't think we've heard that it is yet.
We haven't. True. It has to be. It definitely. I don't think Nintendo's going to abandon that. The thing I'm hoping is that I hope they go capacitive this time. I don't want any more resistive touchscreens. That's ancient technology now. I used to be in favor of it back when I used a stylus, but now with a gamepad, I felt like using a stylus is often more cumbersome than not, especially with games that swap between the two, or between the controls and the touchscreen.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Like, I always want to use my fingers on the gamepad, and then I feel so guilty for getting it all, fingerprinty. Like, fix that!
Yeah. I'm trying to think. The only game I really used the stylus more than anything else with the gamepad was Rainbow Curse. So
yeah, and you didn't have to look at the TV in that case. Well, you couldn't really because you're using the.
Which it kind of ruined the point of all those amazing visuals.
It did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, Derek. To your point though, real quick, there might be one potential problem here, and that's as far as we know. In order to output the image, you need the dock, which would mean it would be pretty impractical to use it as a controller at the same time if you're playing a game on the TV.
That is true.
So unless you maybe you can also connect it via cord, maybe
there must be a separate controller. Then they must have a pro controller.
Well, I think so. I think these detachable controllers would serve as a controller. I'm just saying you wouldn't be able to use the screen as a gamepad-like controller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, according to this mock-up, there seems to be some sort of thing that comes out, I don't even know what to call it. A stand, thank you. Yeah, a kickstand comes out from it. So maybe you set up the kickstand in front of you and then have the controllers and you just sort of tap the Wii,
kind of like a Pikmin 3 setup. That's going to be way too hard for most gamers.
I don't have a coffee table, so that wouldn't work for me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stand's a little bit weird. I mean, I think that's actually awesome when you're potentially awesome when you're out in the not out and about. Actually, it's not very practical then. But I'm thinking if you're on an airplane, that could work, and maybe you'll have media functionality too. Maybe if you can watch movies on it or something. That kickstand makes all the more sense now.
Yeah, well, I mean, even 3DS has Netflix and YouTube apps and stuff, so I'm sure that this is going to be able to do that.
And what is kind of cool, that's a good point. What is kind of cool too is with these controllers, with you basically having two controllers with you. At all times, maybe they can make two-player games. One person holds one controller, the other person holds the other, and then you can use this kickstand as a portable gaming machine or portable multiplayer gaming machine.
You know what you said, Andre, about taking it on an airplane, for example. I'm thinking that this could be a great console for people who want to not only just play handheld games, but take the home console experience on the go. In that they can put the kickstand up as a little tiny screen on the train, detach the controller, pieces, and then use it like a real controller and TV screen, just shrunken down. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be like a handheld like the Game Boy and DS's have always been, but it's like a real couch gaming experience, but just somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which would be cool to have that sort of third functionality where you can use it like a traditional handheld, you can use it as sort of like a smaller TV screen and controller, or you can have it on a home console experience.
Exactly. And while this is all really, really exciting, it is also, I think, terrifying because these are all these different kinds of features, different kinds of play styles that we as Nintendo fans, as Wii U owners, as people with open minds about where Nintendo's going with their hardware, can understand and wrap our heads around these kinds of ideas and all the different ways that this serves so many different people all at once. But Wii U did a lot of those same things, and it failed to hit that marketing message on just about every single count. Not only did it fail to hit the marketing message, a lot of those counts it failed to actually implement into the hardware and the software well enough for people to enjoy it. So I wonder if the NX is going to run into the same sort of problems. I hope with Nintendo's new management, with Kimishima at the top, and with this increased focus on mobile gaming experiences, and we know Kimishima is going to push marketing really hard. I'm hoping they can do it. I'm optimistic, but history has not proven in their favor.
Well, it really does come down to marketing and really the name of the console, because because the one of the big reasons the Wii U just had so much trouble is that a lot of people thought it was just an expansion of the Wii, not an actual new console, and they obviously cannot use the Wii name with this system. It just feels like a death knell at this point. So it really is like they're gonna have to nail the marketing, and they got to come up with a great name. Honestly, maybe because I'm so used to it at this point, but I do like the name NX.
It's because we're used to it.
I do too. I think that's great. I have a feeling they might just call it the Nintendo.
They'll have something. I don't know what they're gonna call it, but I feel like any name would be fine as long as it's not the Wii at this point. So but I mean, marketing's gonna be important, and I think the fact that I think they're gonna pitch this as primarily a handheld that also works at home. They're going for the opposite of what the Wii U was, basically. It's not a console with handheld elements, it's a handheld that you can also use at home. And I have to say, like, on a personal level, like, I love that, because my least favorite part of handheld gaming is the fact that it's a handheld. I don't like using handhelds anymore. And also, this will make recording videos way easier. I don't have to go out and buy or you know, outfit my 3DS with modifications anymore, so...
That'd be super nice, you know, because that's always, like, that's always a fun prospect.
Yeah,
you can't get comfortable playing a 3DS game.
Yeah, same here. I'm like totally the situation. I love off TV play on the gamepad. I use that for Minecraft all the time. I can't wait to use that for Breath of the Wild. Well, I'm probably gonna get it on NX. Let's be real. But yeah, so I mean, I think that there are lots of ways that the two markets that they've served, the handheld and the home console, can really unify really, really well. And I think that the hardware that they've developed for this idea is doing a great job. But yeah, I think it's a matter of the messaging, and I really think that they're going to need a great software library at launch, and not just you know, and in the launch window or promised a year down the line, because Zelda Breath of the Wild is great, but I don't think that that one game is going to be able to sell people on a very brand new hardware idea, and not just a new idea for, or not just a new home console that plays like all your others. I think it could be an amazing system seller for something that is a traditional home console, but for something like this, I think they're going to need Zelda Breath of the Wild out there pulling out the big guns, but also support that with other things like Minecraft, Smash Bros. Hopefully, like, they can get Mario Maker or some kind of Mario game up there. Hopefully they can get something like Mario Kart, like maybe a port of 8 or something. They're going to need something that can really show everyone that this is a console you need, not just because of the way it lets you play games, but because of the games it lets you play. And that's one of the biggest problems they had with Wii U.
That'd be major, but I also had a thought, like, with all the Pokemon news that we've come out, being Pokemon has traditionally been a handheld series. But with this being a hybrid, this might be our first chance to get a real Pokemon experience on a console.
Yeah.
If you ignore the Game Boy player...
That's not the same. That's not the same thing. Like, I mean, the graphically and everything else as well.
Game Boy player.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it depends what direction they could go. But I mean, I wouldn't expect anything much different than what they're doing now with the latest Pokemon games.
Yeah, same here.
You know, I don't think it outputting to a TV really changes that much. I mean, we've already seen like Nintendo's like type of games they make for the handheld and console kind of like merge together to the point where they're straight up porting games from one to the other.
Right.
So I don't think we're gonna see like a massive shift here in the kind of games they're making.
Okay.
Right. I think that this is primarily a move to merge their software libraries into one so that they don't have to support two systems at once. Because that, I think, was one of the biggest problems they had this generation, is when they're making 3DS games, they're not making enough Wii U games. And when they're making Wii U games, they're not making enough 3DS games. So neither of those systems really had the full throttle support of the software libraries that they needed to compete with things like PlayStation and Xbox on the Wii U side, and then the growing mobile industry on the 3DS side. So I think that the reason that they're making this system the way it is at all is because the software really needs to come together and support just one device.
And Nintendo really doesn't need that now more than ever, considering the near complete lack of third parties, at least on the console. Handheld's holding up a little bit better.
Right.
And who knows how the NX will do moving forward. That may not be a problem for it, or it might be, given its potential comparative weakness compared to the other consoles. Who knows at this point? I mean, the Wii U...
well, actually, we do have evidence about it. It can't be that much weaker than the other consoles, because we've already heard from Sega that Sonic 2017 is going to play on the NX.
Right. Right.
So it has to have some power under the hood.
Right. It's gonna be close enough that most third-party developers, I think, who make their games for PS4 and Xbox One can port them. Well, it depends how the development kits are set up and the development tools for porting PS4 and Xbox One games, but power-wise, PS4 and Xbox One games should be able to run
down to
pretty well.
If it gets an install base big enough that it becomes worth it for them again to potentially, because even though it may be easy to downscale if they have to, that's still going to take them, it still takes them time and money. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully the NX will be a success. Nintendo's handhelds typically have done well, and the fact that this is a handheld primarily does bode well for Nintendo's future. So... It is,
Right,
yeah.
and Handheld is where they have all their third-party support right now. I mean, we've got the Bravely series, we've got Ace Attorney and Layton and, Yokai Watch. Like, their Handheld third-party support is really fantastic. So I think that if they can get those third parties on board to making experiences that work both on the TV and on the go, I think that will be enough that people can look at Nintendo's games, look at those third-party games, and enough people will be buying this console that then other third parties who maybe are not quite on board yet are saying, well, you know what? This is worth the investment. Wii U sold 12 million, not even close to worth it, but, if this console is selling more like 3DS numbers and it's easy to get their games on there, then, yeah, I mean, that's
I think
really going
something
to
else
be
interesting about this is
tipping
this
point.
basically marks the end of the DS line, I would think, and also the DS concept. There are, unless you're connected to the TV, there are no dual screens here, and we don't even know if you'll be able to use both screens at the same time anyway. And as a portable, as far as we know, it's a single screen device. What do you think about that? Does that matter? Like, are you gonna miss the dual screens, or?
I'll miss them, but, I'm also the kind of gamer who can go back to things like no problem. Like I'm almost done with my Pokédex on the on the Virtual Console version of Pokemon Yellow, and so when I got a little tired of that, I busted out my SP and Pokemon Gold version, and I've been playing that now too. And so I have no trouble going back to old games. I have no trouble going back to old hardware. Personally, for me, I won't miss it because of that, but I think a lot of people, may get nostalgic, especially from, like, the 2006 days where everyone had Nintendogs and,
Right.
And that makes sense, but I'm very much like you, Colin, where I can go back and forth between them, and I just sort of focus on what the game itself does. Like, I can go back to, Game Boy Advance titles with very little issue and just work within what the system limitations are, because I've also been playing Pokemon Yellow, and I had no problems going through that. Like, I wasn't pushing buttons I wasn't supposed to. I had everything down that I needed to. I adapted, and I think the DS brought a lot to how games were played and made them very unique or presentation wise, but I don't think I'm going to have too much of an issue going back to a unified screen for the next handheld.
Yeah. I think it depends in part too on how the DS games age, because I think the reason that we can go back to a lot of these things is Nintendo games tend to age a lot better than games from other companies. Like, it's hard to play Final Fantasy VII now. Like, the visual's not great. Like, the battle system's pretty good. But there are some quirks to it.
Well, like, even I like how the cutscenes, which looked amazing back in the day, probably hold up the worst. They're the thing that hold up the worst in the game.
Exactly, yeah. But then Final Fantasy VI, that's no different. It's amazing. So it depends how the DS games age, and I think with the dual screen technologies, and some of them tried to do 3D in ways that didn't work quite as well. Like New Super Mario Bros. I don't think people are really going to be caring about that one so much. But if you can't really play DS games in the future to the same delight that you could today, then yeah, people are going to miss it. But if you can, it's still there.
Yeah, well, I think we've covered everything pretty well, except for one more point that came out of this, and that's the fact that apparently Nintendo plans to announce the NX in some form come September. Which is pretty soon. Like, it seems far away, but it's like, well, we're at the end of July. That's less than 2 months away. Which is great, although I'm hoping that they announce a little bit more than what we know now. So, it's like, hey, here's everything. You read the Eurogamer? That's true. All right, see you next year.
I'd hope if they did, if they do show it off in September, that we get a look at the system. I doubt we'll get a name right away. But
I think we will. Because
I think we will too.
It depends. Okay, I'm going to amend that. It depends on if they're actually going to make March. If they're actually planning to make March, like they said they will, we have to get the name. They need people to start talking about it as what it's actually called, and not the NX, or else it is called the NX.
Right.
However, if it gets pushed to like later next year, then sure, maybe they won't announce a name. But if they are hitting March, I think we have to know the name. That's only 6 months from September. That's not much time to market a brand new platform.
Yeah, I mean, the time is running out on NX's release already. I mean, there's no way that anything they're making software-wise isn't coming out to the NX. There's no way that any marketing plans they're doing isn't geared specifically for NX. Like, it's the NX's time now.
That makes sense.
I think they're going to be pulling out the big guns, at certain stops along the way. September is a good time frame, I think. One of the things that I think you cut out when you were saying this, Andre, so I forgot what I was saying this in reference to, but one of the things I noticed was they said that their marketing, or the message specifically that they're trying to push, is that this is a console where you take your games on the go. So that this goes, touching back on that messaging point. I think you were saying that it sounds like, or that the message they need is that these are handheld games that you can scale up. Or maybe I'm conflating that with what I was saying earlier about the processor. But it sounds like the message that they're putting forward is really going to be that it's a home console that you can take on the go. And I wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
You think that's the direction they're going to take? I'm not...
That's the direction they're going to take for hardware, for sure. But for messaging, do you think people need to hear that it's a home console you can take on the go, or that it's a handheld that you can scale up? Because I wonder if it's a home console you can take on the go, maybe people are going to be comparing it to PS4 and Xbox One unfairly.
I think it makes more sense, just based on Nintendo's history and their successes, for them to take the handheld route and then introduce the home angle. So I think introducing as more of a handheld makes sense, because it will help avoid those comparisons too, I think. Because I don't think
it's
going to be...
Bring back the Game Boy brand.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't think they're going to be extremely... I don't think the comparisons will be extremely favorable to the PS4 and the Xbox One, especially with their new generations coming out. I think it makes more sense, because Nintendo owns the handheld space. That is theirs. And actually I didn't touch on this earlier. I think this actually is really a great idea for Nintendo. They already own that space. They should continue to own it, and then use that almost as a Trojan horse back into the house. So to start getting, to start taking over the living room again. So I think that makes most sense for them, because we've seen it with Nintendo's consoles, excepting the Wii. Literally every console sold worse than the last. Whereas the handhelds have been a lot more stable over the years and decades, even. So I do expect them to take more of the handheld route, although, really might be more of a mixture. I don't think they are going to pitch it, though, as mostly a console.
No, it makes more sense to pitch it as more of a handheld, especially since if you pitch it as more of a handheld, it's like, okay, here's Breath of the Wild on Wii U. Also, we have a handheld that plays Breath of the Wild, and you can play it on your TV if you want. That makes that sounds more exciting than here's another console that you can play Breath of the Wild on, but you can also take it on the go if you want. Right. And it's not, for some reason, that just does not sound as exciting as the handheld angle. And so I agree with Andre in that it will likely be marketed in that way.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree with you guys, and I definitely think that's the direction they should go. So I hope I'm just reading too closely into Eurogamer's statement there. We'll see.
Yeah, we will see. I think only the last thing I want to touch on, we kind of touched on it earlier. What do you think about the idea maybe of... Okay, so when Nintendo announced Zelda becoming the NX, everyone was like, and I think even you said it, Colin, I'm going to get the NX version now. Why wouldn't I? That's going to be the better version. Right. And now I wonder if it's will it really be the definitive version now? I'm wondering...
Oh, I think so.
You think so still?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that.
I guess my point more is, I don't think it's going to be the leap some may have expected. I think
it's not going to be the next generation version. Right. But I think, if you put it into that base, I think it will be able to do, higher resolutions, or maybe it won't have so much, pop in and stuff. But the difference in power, it's not going to downgrade in any way from the Wii U. There's no way that's happening. And so for the sheer value of the fact that you can play the same game on your home console on the TV, get that amazing experience, and then also take it on the go on your handheld, that alone is going to make it the definitive version. Just the playability.
It is kind of cool to imagine being able to play a game of the scale of Breath of the Wild at home, and then when you go to work or whatever, just take it with you and keep on playing.
Yeah.
Oh man, make plane trips so much nicer.
Yeah, right. Just do work on the go all the time.
That's exactly it. I've been taking my Wii U lots of different places, and for example, airplanes now have outlets. Yeah, and so I pack a Wii U in my backpack, plug it in, get the gamepad out, play Mario Maker.
This is huge for you then. This is a game changer.
Oh, this is amazing. Yeah, this is why I'm such a big proponent of what they're doing here. And And this is why I think that this is something that really everyone can get on board with, but they just need to make sure they hit that right. They need to get the software, they need to get the marketing. If they can do that, and they need to get the form factor. If this is a console that's ugly and, confuses people from a, device perspective, that's bad too. But at least the concept, A+. Please get this right.
I think the only thing that might disappoint me just a little bit is the fact that, from the sounds of it, it's going to be connected. I guess we don't know for sure, but based on the fact that it's a dock, it sounds like it's going to be wired to your TV via HDMI probably. Whereas I had a slight hope that they had worked out the Wii U technology to the point where you could stream a 1080p image from your handheld to your TV, right?
I don't, because I think the dock is going to make it more. I think the dock is what's going to scale the games up to work on a TV and work as a home console experience. Because they can't fit all the hardware in the little device,
Do you think the dock's going to contain extra graphical abilities then?
I believe that's what the patent for this thing suggested, and I don't know. I could be wrong about that, and I don't know. Obviously a patent might not play out in practice as it does in theory, but I would be surprised if it doesn't have some sort of boost. I don't know how it's going to work technologically, but if all the hardware is just in the little handheld device, then that's going to be a really lame home console experience.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily means that. I think. That would make things simpler, I think. But it would be interesting if the dock did function as basically. So you're saying that the dock would basically be a 32X, right?
Kind of, yeah.
And it makes it more powerful. And that would be interesting in the sense that you could potentially buy different docks later on to upgrade your system, maybe. But it would only apply to the home console
And maybe that's how they compete with Scorpio and Neo.
Sorry, say that again?
And maybe those upgradable docks is how they compete with Scorpio and Neo.
Maybe, you never know. Although, at the least, I do think it's possible. I'm not sure if they'll go that route.
Me
but
either.
I do think it may function along those lines simply for the fact that it wouldn't have to be portable, or since it wouldn't be portable, it would have that constant power supply. I think that maybe it'll run at a, I think rather, to better say this, I think when you're using it as a portable, it may, downscale the system's power to save battery,
right,
and also to potentially power a lower resolution screen.
Xenoblade Chronicles to Xenoblade Chronicles 3D.
That's exactly it. I don't think we're going to get a 1080p screen on this. I think it'll be 720p for both cost reasons, because we don't, we want Nintendo probably wants to hit a decent price point. Also battery reasons. 1080p draws more power. 720p wouldn't, because it's less of a screen to power, and also that's less computing power. Whereas when you plug into your home console, or to the dock, I should say, then it will give you the full-scale 1080p experience. Just how they go about that, we'll see. And I guess actually one final thing. I keep saying that, but
there's so much.
I don't think you know that word.
I don't.
He knows it better than Square Enix. Final Fantasy 15 now.
It's true. Okay. You're right. What cost do you think they'll hit, and what do you think is a reasonable price point for this?
$250 is too much for a handheld system primarily. Yeah,
oh, man.
They're gonna have real trouble marketing this at whatever price point they can afford. I hear that they might have struck a great deal with Nvidia on their processors once Microsoft and Sony opted out of Nvidia for Xbox and PlayStation, and then Nvidia went to Nintendo and gave them the great deal, so that can help bring the price down a lot. Hopefully that does enough of a job, but $250 was too much for the 3DS when that came out. They had to give a huge price cut. The whole ambassador program, that was a mess. If this is primarily a handheld console, they are gonna need to keep it at $250 maximum in order to convince people that it's worth their purchase. Even if they have the home console upgrade, I think that's what brings it up, from $180 or $200 for a handheld device to then $250 for the home console unit.
Well, that's why I wonder if they might be able to get away with $250 for a handheld, simply because it's kind of 2-in-1 in a way.
Right. I think they can get away with $250 for this because of the dock.
At the same time, $199 would be the sweeter price point to hit.
Yeah.
That seems just more accessible than $250.
Definitely.
I should mention too, the NVIDIA Shield, which I already talked about, is basically this, from what I can tell. That also is only $199, and I do believe that is a couple years old now. Which means Nintendo could be targeting a higher end device while retaining that price point. So,
I think. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Oh no, I was gonna say it does make sense. It does. I don't think anything above $250. I think will be a bit of a harder sell. But it's also really dependent on how much of an upgrade this dock provides the NX, and that's sort of what the unknown we're working with here, because we have an idea of what its power might be, but not any specifics. But I do think you guys are right in that 200 to 250 would be that sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo just doesn't operate at price points above that. Wii U, that was a big problem going out the gate, is $300, and people don't really understand too much what this console is, what they're even getting for that price. And now we're seeing PlayStation 4 and Xbox One selling at even $250 sometimes. So they can't. $250 is really the most they can hit, both for Nintendo's own history and for the competition that they're up against.
I wonder, the price point might be kind of telling, though, of the system. Well, I was going to say, it might be telling of the system's graphical capabilities, but when we see the games, they'll be telling of its graphical capabilities.
Right.
But if they are targeting like a $199 price point, though, I mean, I think that right there is proof that it's not going to be as powerful as the Xbox One or PS4. Granted, those systems are a few years old now. Actually like 4 years old.
Yeah.
But still, those were using relatively modern chips at that time. Maybe not as modern as some people would have liked. And now with a handheld that also has to provide a screen and battery, like, I can't see how they'll be able to offer like a similar power in a smaller form factor at a cheaper price with a screen and all the other stuff that goes with a handheld.
Right. I really think the 250 price point is going to be where it's at, unless they're really, really bold and go for something more expensive. I think that's going to be a shot in the foot if they do, but I don't think they're going to be able to bring it down to $199 just because of all the hardware that goes into it, all the power that goes into the little device as well as the dock. And I think they said that they were trying to sell this thing not at a loss. Wii U's been selling at a loss. 3DS sold it at a loss at when they cut it down to the 180 price point after 250 didn't work. I think they said that they don't want this system to be selling for less than the money they're putting into manufacturing each one. And if that's the case, I don't think that 200 is going to do that for them.
No, I think you're pretty much right there. I really don't have too much to add. The thing is, I don't feel equipped to discuss price points and how exactly it's all going to throw out, but I do think 250 definitely seems to be the point they'll hit. I don't see it going really less than that. I mean, it'd be nice by a consumer standpoint, but if we're going off of what Colin says and how it's, they don't want to sell at a loss, 250 to 300 makes more sense, but 300 is also where you start getting into that sort of weird area where people might not be looking at it too much. 250 for something that the NX does, I can see people who easily dropping okay, I can do that, and just drop the money on it. So,
yeah.
Impulse buys is what they're going to want to favor here. It's like, oh, that sounds pretty neat. You know what? I'm down for that. Sure, I'll drop 250, and maybe they'll do a bundle where for 300 you get the system and Breath of the Wild, that type of thing.
I don't know. If we're going for impulse buys, I think that's too expensive. But I think mostly what they're going to be figuring out is how much is too much for consumers and how little is too little for us. And I think 250 hits that right sweet spot. And it's maybe not ideal, but any less is too little for Nintendo and any more is too much for consumers. Yeah. That's the way I see it.
I think that makes sense. So, any final thoughts, guys? Anything else you want to touch on here before we wrap it up?
I'm excited.
Yeah, you're excited, Colin?
Yeah, I hope they get this. I mean, I'm gonna love it either way, I'm sure, because like we've said, I already play games this way, and this is exactly what I want as a gamer. But if they can really get this hardware out into the public in a way that everyone appreciates and can understand the value of, then I mean, they're on the verge of their next greatest hit.
I think it has a lot of potential, and if these rumors are correct, it could be a very interesting and fun console. I think Nintendo is kind of onto something here, and it makes sense from their business standpoint because of how successful their handheld line has always been, and to sort of expand that to sort of and to take advantage of that success makes a lot of sense for the NX. And I am let's just say I'm very curious for September.
Yeah, I think we all are. I really can't wait to see Nintendo officially announce this, show us what it's all about, and I suspect we still don't know everything about it.
No.
We had heard, there have been many rumors and patents and ideas that there would be some unique controller or some unique control aspect to this too. So there's definitely more we don't know, I think. And
Yeah.
I really also just want to see the games they announce for this. So yeah, I'm
You know-
I'm overall I'm excited as well. Like, I mean, any new platform I'm excited for. And I think this is actually a great idea for Nintendo. It capitalizes on their handheld line while, hopefully leveraging their console business as well. So we'll see. I will say from a purely personal and selfish level, as one who almost doesn't care at all about handhelds anymore, I'm just a little bit disappointed it doesn't have like a greater console focus. In that it kind of compromises what it can be graphically. Not that even matters that much, because I think the Wii has produced some amazing games, amazing looking games.
Well, and we don't know what this is going to be graphically either. I mean,
we
for all
don't.
we know,
But
this is an amazing processor. They got a great deal on. Like,
that's true. I mean, it could be, but I still think like the idea would be if they could use the money it cost, instead of putting it toward like a screen and battery, put it toward more graphics, more hardware.
do you want something more like a step above Xbox and PlayStation, or do you want something more like on par with like those current gen consoles?
Well, I mean, if we're going like pie in the sky, I mean, you always want more, right?
Well, yeah.
So,
I mean, I'd love a virtual reality like 4K thing for $50.
yeah. But I mean, I just want to stress, like, this is pure. Like, I mean, I don't care that much. I'm a Nintendo gamer. I don't think graphics matter that much. But I'm just saying, since I probably won't use it as a portable that much, since I already don't use my portables as portables anyway.
Yeah.
I would have preferred. I personally would have preferred them to go the console route. Purely in a vacuum, I realized if that tanked the company, I would have wanted them to go that route. So.
Yeah. I mean, the good news, I think that with the dock, I think that this is going to be probably about the level of PS4 and Xbox One. That's what we've been hearing a lot from, some of these, like, Unseen 64s, Liam Robertson. We hear from Emily Rogers. These systems are not aiming to be the most powerful on the market, but if you're playing on the TV, you'll get something pretty close to what we've already got.
We'll see, but there's one thing to keep in mind
yeah.
is that this is coming, 4 years after those are, and now the new generation, their next generation is upon us almost, especially with the Scorpio, which really looks to be almost an entire new hardware generation, almost.
Yeah, but development costs are going to be so high for that. I don't know that
that's not my
Scorpio's going to
concern.
work out. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other discussion.
But that's
too.
also like if people don't want to go to those higher costs all of a sudden to that degree yet, all of a sudden the NX is looking a lot more sexy to these third-party developers. It's like, oh man, we're not ready to go that route yet, so let's just...
Yeah.
I don't want to put in all these extra features that are going to cost us an arm and a leg. We'll put out our stuff on the NX for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is coming at a time when there are too many moving parts in the entire industry that it's so hard to tell whether this thing's going to work or not.
It is, yeah, it is. It's really hard to tell. I mean, one thing that we didn't even touch on is the fact that it seems like the mobile market has largely eroded because of, cell phones. We haven't really had, like, when the 3DS launched, I would say we hadn't yet quite reached like peak cell phone, right? Like that was in 2010. That was only a few years after the iPhone had launched, or 2011, I guess. The iPhone, I mean, had been out for a few years by then, but it's only grown much bigger then. The App Store has become much bigger since then.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how the NX performs, simply because of how different the market is now. Again, I think this is the right choice for Nintendo. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But we're not going to know how great of an idea it really is until the thing launches and we see how it performs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I've read a little bit about how the App Store, there's very few people are getting new apps anymore. I mean, Pokemon Go is the obvious exception because that thing's a freaking phenomenon. But otherwise, before that point, there is a lot of people that's just sort of like, no, I have enough apps. I don't need to get any new ones. I got everything I'm set up for. So the mobile market is actually starting to slow a little bit, at least from the little bit I've read. I don't know if that's an absolute guarantee or anything like that.
Absolute.
Well, I think from monetization, I think it's still, pretty strong. Maybe in terms of getting new apps, it's slowing down. But I know that the mobile market in the last few years has also basically collapsed Japan's gaming industry. I mean, so many of these companies are going near bankrupt. Like, Nintendo's the only one who's doing even okay anymore, essentially. And that's why companies like Konami are turning to, like, pachinko and mobile stuff, and Square Enix is doing all this stuff on mobile. So, That's another thing just to remember is that Nintendo's coming from a country where the gaming habits are rapidly shifting towards mobile, and home console, handheld gaming dedicated consoles are not really doing as well anymore. So I wonder how much they're going to sort of tip the scale towards the Western markets versus try to consolidate the mobile appeals into the NX. Like, for example, if this thing is running with an NVIDIA, I know that a lot of like mobile devices run with NVIDIA chips, and maybe they're going to try to get away that mobile games can work on this thing too. Who knows?
It's true. I just thought of something, actually. There's so much to talk about.
One final thing.
I know. So, assuming the fact that it has to be in the dock to work on the TV, even if there is a touchscreen, that touchscreen becomes worthless if you can't access it, which makes me wonder if this might, or I mean, maybe it gets to the point that maybe there won't be a touchscreen if you can't use it as when in home console form.
Yeah, that's basically my thinking. I'm not sure there is one.
And they'll make Mario Maker impossible then, basically.
I heard that the Mario Maker port was scrapped. Line up.
I've heard that as well. But I don't think that would necessarily mean the sequel.
It would suck.
Yeah,
it would suck. Let me tell you, but it does line up.
But it could make it where I guess maybe you, like for a game like Mario Maker, right? Maybe it only works in portable form, and then when you want to play the actual levels, then you use it as a TV, or then you can use it on the TV.
Yeah, that's right. And you can, for example, put the thing in the dock and take the controller attachments out and play it. And it's not like the system's going to be too far from you that if you want to make a level instead of just play them. But I think it's also true that if you're going to sit down on the couch and play Mario Maker, you're not really going to be wanting to make the levels so much as you want to play through a bunch of them. Whereas making levels can be done sort of like at a desk, for example, or on the go. I mean, specifically, that's where it's really great.
I am wondering if, maybe Breath of the Wild, the fact that it barely uses a gamepad is kind of a hint of the future of touchscreen gaming for Nintendo.
Yeah, that was my thinking at E3, is that it suggests that the NX doesn't really use it as heavily.
Yep.
Cool.
One thing I will say.
One final thing.
This can be the final thing. Sure, is I am very excited for the NX trailer when they show off the dock and they put the handheld console in and say, "Now you're playing with power."
Oh.
Well, they already brought that. Didn't they already bring that back for the NES Classic console?
Yeah, but they can do it again.
Oh, okay.
How dare you try to take away from this announcement, Derek?
Let me dream.
Well, what was their SNES marketing? They could use that.
I don't remember.
I think at one time they tried to say, "Now you're playing with superpower." I could be making that up though. That
sounds familiar, so you might be right.
Well, they did have super to everything back then, so
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're finally about done here until we make a part 2 of this for whatever reason. So, Colin, where can people find you at?
So you can find me at Gamnesia, where I write some articles, and you can find me as the host of the Nintendo Week podcast. You can actually find our YouTube channel, Gamnesia TV, and watch some highlight videos of the kinds of discussions and news clips we have and fun stuff we do there if you want to check it out and see if it's worth your time.
You definitely should check it out. It definitely is worth your time.
Yeah, I gotta have you guys on, by the way.
You should, man.
I keep meaning to.
You've been slacking, jeez.
I know.
This is a totally imbalanced relationship.
2 weeks from now. We're
2 weeks.
Again 2 weeks from now.
A year from now, whenever.
2 weeks is not close. You're adding another 50 weeks to my promise.
All right. And with that, I think we're done here, guys. So thanks for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below, which is a good way to keep updated on everything we post. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain for much more on the NX and other things gaming as well. Catch you later. Bye.